Welcome, everyone, to today's workshop for the West Virginia Game Developers Expo. My name is Jeremy Doolin. I am a computer and information technology instructor at West Virginia Northern Community College in Wheeling and on the Weirton campus as well. And I'm also a game developer. My company is Doolin Digital, and I'm developing a tactical and strategy RPG called Ballad of Thuriana that I exhibited at our Expo last year. I also had the honor of being a keynote speaker yesterday, so some of you I might be seeing, or maybe seeing me again today. But I want to thank the organizers of the event, Patrick and Corey and everybody who was involved in putting this together. It's a great event, something I look forward to every year. Today's presentation is going to be on what's called the Tiled Map Editor. And Tiled is a free program that is also cross-platforms. You can use it on Mac, Windows, Linux, and it's for creating tile maps, which are obviously, maps are an important part of game development. And I have to admit that Tiled has become one of my most important tools of all, along with my code editor. I happen to not be using a full-fledged game engine like Unity or Unreal, Godot, Defold, any of those. I'm actually using the Love 2D framework, which is a Lua-based framework. And so Tiled is actually a very useful tool for me. So what I want to do today is show what Tiled can do. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to give a detailed step-by-step method of how to perform each of the things that I'm going to show you. I'm using a setup that I already have ready and working for me. So you're going to be seeing things that I've already done and that I've already set up. However, I am in the process of creating YouTube videos that do demonstrate these abilities. The program itself is it has documentation, and the documentation, I'm going to show you the documentation, but it doesn't give thorough examples of everything that can be done. It kind of leaves it up to the reader to figure out how to use some of these features, especially objects, which we'll be talking about. So I kind of had to find my way for how to use the map editor to do a lot of the things I wanted to do. And now that I've found my way, I want to make videos that show everyone else specifically how to use some of these tools. So today, think of this as an exposition, an expo, right, of one of the most useful tools that I know of in game development, so that you can see what it can do. And if you're interested in more details, you can see the official tile documentation, and of course my YouTube videos. My YouTube channel is Doolin Digital, so if you want to see the videos that I already have up there, please feel free. But let's go ahead and get on with it. I'm going to share my screen. This is the Tiled webpage. It's just simply mapeditor.org. And you can download it from itch.io. Please feel free to donate. The guy who's developing this is doing a lot of hard work on it. He's providing an extremely valuable tool. I've made sure to donate myself. But please do. It's helping him pay the bills, obviously. And it really is worth whatever small amount that you can afford for a donation. It's that good. It has a few interesting pictures here to show some of what it can do. This is it does overhead tile maps. It can do side view, like for platformers, and it even has isometric and hexagonal maps as well. I've never worked with these, but the Final Fantasy Tactics style isometric maps are possible as well. Most recent version is 1.4.2 as of this past August. There's a link to the documentation here, and I do recommend reading over this documentation. It's going to cover all of the simple stuff very well, which is one of the reasons I'm not going into incredible detail with it. The documentation does start you off very well, and there's a lot of good information here. So on to the map editor itself. So here is the map editor, and I already have a file open. This is one of my maps. We can see that it's a square grid, and if I zoom out, you can see how I make an approach to submaps. This is a small town, and in the small town are 5 houses, and in 2 of the houses there are basements, so there are actual basement rooms as well. I don't have a house done for the very large house in the upper part yet. But the way this map works is when you're in the main map here, if you're walking around and exploring the town, you will never see anything beyond the edges of the map. So if you decide you want to go into this house here, you'll walk through the door, and there will be a fade out and a fade in to one of these submaps. In fact, it'll take you to this little submap here. This submap also, when it displays in the game, you will only see the map itself and black along the sides. You won't be able to see any of the surrounding parts of the map. And then there's there are stairs here, and the stairs will take you to yet another submap that are just up here. So I brought that up first because I knew that some of you may wonder why are things separated the way they are. This is just my approach to doing submaps using tiled. And I'll get into a little bit more detail on how I set those up here in the future. So if you take a look at the main town map, it's pretty obvious to see how it's constructed of all the different square tiles. If you're familiar with any of the older 16-bit games or even newer indie games, you can obviously see the patterns. You can see the repeating tiles. It's an effective method. You can see the same doors, the same windows. Stylistically, things are going to be similar. So let's take a look at basic drawing. And I have quite a few tile sets already brought in and imported. As you can see over here, if I click on this little arrow over here, you can see all of the different tile sets that I'm working with right now. The first thing I want to call your attention to on the right-hand side is the layers. Layering is a very important part of drawing maps. And as you can see, I've got quite a few layers. I have a ground layer and a ground decoration layer. The ground layer allows me to do things like paint grass and dirt, or even floors. So if we come down here to the inside of that house, I've got a little StreamYard window right above an inconvenient location. All right, there we go. So this house is a good example of using ground decoration. The floor is wood, or the wood tiles, but then I have this carpet, and the carpet is technically part of the ground itself, but the way it lays on top of the wood, I wanted to make sure that if it didn't occupy the whole tile, that you could still see the wood underneath it. Some of our tiles have transparency, so I wanted to make sure that the carpet was a decoration on the ground layer. So the ground deco layer is decorations above the ground. The characters will walk above these. Then I've got another layer representing objects, things like chairs or trees, lamp posts, the bookshelves here, the barrels up here. And then I have an objects decoration, because we can also decorate those objects. For example, we can see this table has a little wine bottle and a lamp on it. And this small table here has a small pot. Down here inside the tavern, we can see some more of that going on. We have the bar itself here has a couple of barrels and another bottle. And these are decorations on top of the objects. Then I have this layer called entities. There will never be anything in this layer. It's actually an empty layer that I use only in the game itself, in the game code. It's where all of my characters go. That's where the characters are drawn. Then I have an objects upper, which represents the upper part of objects that characters can walk behind. So a good example back here in this map are the chairs. If I have a character walk behind this chair, I want them to appear behind the top of the chair. The bottom of the chair is a collidable tile, because my characters can't occupy that tile. But this little top section here, I want them to appear behind it. So there is another layer above that so that it's drawn above the characters. And then the above layer represents the highest layer, and that's things like the ceiling and other items that are even above the object's upper layer. Then you can see a collision layer. Collision layer is just a layer of red tiles, translucent, that aren't drawn in the game. Actually, I can draw them. All I have to do is turn the visibility. Oops. All I have to do is turn the visibility off, and they will not be drawn in game, but the tiles are still there. I use that for collision. So you can see here, my character can't walk outside these boundaries. They'll run into the chair and the table, and this table here, this chair. So that defines my collision areas. Now, I actually have an idea for how to improve this as well. Tiled will allow me to set these particular tiles, like, for example, the table, the bottom of the chair, the walls, the fireplace, even these tiles. It will allow me to set those as collidable. I'll need to rewrite some code to take advantage of that, but I won't need to explicitly draw my collision layer anymore. Anytime I draw a chair, the game will immediately know it's collidable. Very cool. I just need to put that into action. And then lastly, I have an object layer. And this is where we're going to define things like these little guys. These are light sources. And I can place doors and treasure chests and hidden items and things like that. All right. So now that we've got the layers taken care of, let's look at some actual drawing. In the lower right here, you see one of my tile sets that are open. And these are all by the same artist. But I can, let's see. I can switch my tile sets. I'm going to switch over here to one called Farm and Fort. And here's another one called Hot Springs. Here we have house tiles. And inside tiles for drawing the insides of buildings. And I have other ones like NPCs. Special items like lampposts. I have chests for where I want to place treasure chests. And even things like animals, like cats and dogs, which are basically another type of NPC. I want to choose the terrain tile. This is all of the terrain that I have at my disposal. I've got some green grass, some yellow grass, dirt, gravel, sand. This is called snow grass. There's actual snow. There's even ice. And all of these have little decorative elements like flowers, rocks, and mushrooms. Over here, we have transition tiles, where we have things like grass transitioning to dirt, which allows you to do things like paths. And then over here, we have water tiles, and their transitions to grass of different colors, to stone, blocks, other transitions. Then way over here, we've got things like lava and stone, ice, various types of ice, a couple of waterfalls. Here we have some lava waterfalls. So this is my main terrain tile set. So the first thing I want to do is select this normal plain old grass, and I'm going to just draw right here in the middle. And if I want to draw grass, I just click and draw the tile. Very simple. I can click anywhere I want that tile to be. Okay, I'm going to undo that. I can also draw lines by holding in on, let's see, Shift. So if I hold in on Shift, I can draw a line, and then another line, and then another line, and then another line. And if I don't want to draw this whole area, there is a flood fill tool where I can just flood the whole thing. All right, so that's very simple. And in, well, the late 80s and early 90s, we would have been perfectly satisfied with this grass. But the pixel artist who drew these tiles provided lots of different grass tiles. Well, it would be nice to have a little bit of variation in there. So there is a way to actually randomize how things get filled like that. So I'm going to undo what I just did there. And I'm going to undo the whole thing. And I want to turn on the little dice here. I'm going to enable random mode. And I'm going to highlight more than one tile. I'm going to highlight these 4 and some of these and maybe a rock, a flower, this flower, one of those. And I want to start drawing again. And now you can see that the tiles aren't all the same as I'm drawing. And the same will happen with the fill. Now we have a much more textured, randomized field of grass. And so this is great. I don't have to, wonder and pick and choose, oh gosh, how do I randomize this? I don't have to draw it tile at a time. But I still can if I want to. If I decide I want a flower patch somewhere, that's fine. I can still highlight these little flowers here. I can put the stamp brush back on, and I can just draw a little flower patch down here in the corner. And now I'm done. The rest of it is randomized, and then I can just put the little flower patch in on its own. So that random mode is very useful. Now, what if I want to put a pond in the middle of this? Okay, that'd be great. Nice little pond. I'm going to go over here to my water tiles. And here they are. There are my water tiles. And I want my pond, I don't want it to be perfectly square. If I wanted to, I could highlight all of these and turn off random here. And I could just plop this right down here in the middle. And you can see it's already animated. So you can use the stamp brush to highlight a group of tiles and stamp something. But let's say I want it to be larger and maybe an irregular size. If I try to stamp brush again, I get this weird effect. That's obviously no good. So I could just decide where I want all of my tiles to be, and I could then draw it by hand, and I have to select the right tile first. And let's see, what would the right tile be here? Let's see, I would need, wait a minute, hold on. Which one is it? Hold on, wait. And now I'm sitting here trying to think of how to draw this by choosing the exact correct little tile. And look how tedious it is. It's getting on my nerves already just having to do it this way. I can make it come down like this, but then I have to get another, I have to put a bend in it. So there's a bend, and oh wait, hold on, I accidentally selected 2. So this is already getting annoying. And the creator of Tiled knew that this was going to happen. So Tiled has the concept of what's called terrains. Instead of drawing tile by tile, you can actually choose a terrain. Now, these are things that you have to set up, but I can choose this normal water here and come over here and draw water by clicking and dragging. And now I can make my pond. See how it fills it in? Pretty cool. There's also an additional thing that you can do with this. You can hold in on, let's see. For me, it is the Windows key. And you can make smaller water, okay? Or you can let go and make it larger. Okay, so we can make these more elaborate things just by clicking and dragging. And now I can do the same thing with this light dirt. I can make a path to it. Okay, now it gets a little weird if I hover over the water. You can see what happens there. But if I want to make a path next to it, that's very easy. And I did not mean to do that, obviously. Okay, so this makes drawing paths a whole lot easier. And I could even put a little island right here in the middle. I could even make a sand island, say, or sand tile, or a big tile. Well, no, that's only a transition to, I'm sorry, that's only a transition to sand. But I could put my little sand island here in the middle. or hold in on this key and make it smaller. There. So very simple. Once you have the terrain tool set up, I do have a YouTube video already on how to set up the terrain tool, and it's just incredibly useful. As you can see, there's also a way to animate tiles. To do this, we can go to View and Show Tile Animations. If I disable this, the tiles will no longer animate. That's kind of up to you. The tiles that are animated, you can see right here, they have the little kind of looks like a little film symbol here in the lower right. If I highlight this tile, where is my animation? Hold on one moment. I'm just trying to remember how to get back into the animation. Well, I have a YouTube video set up for the animation. Because I want to make sure I have enough time to get to the actual objects, which is the really cool part of this. So I'm going to move on, and if I go up to Map and Properties, over here on the right, it shows the actual properties of the map itself. These are determined when you create it. It's an orthogonal map. It is 90 squares by 64 squares. Each square, each tile is 16 pixels by 16 pixels. I could make it infinite if I wanted to. And I can add things like stagger axis and index. Don't worry about those. My tile layer format is CSV. And render order is right down. You can change that. The background color just shows the appearance here in tiled. Below this, however, are the custom properties. Custom properties can be any property that you want for this map. And you can see some of mine here. I have light color. So this will determine lighting. This particular map is at night. So using that purplish color will give it a nighttime effect. I also have a property of main height and main width. This is the width and height of the actual main village area. So that tells my game engine where does the village main map area start and stop. All the rest are submaps. I can say which music to play. This is going to play the town music. I give the map a name. So Parlette will appear. If you go to your menu, you'll see the name Parlette when you go to the map. And the same will be true with the submaps as well. And then I have whether or not I want to show weather. I'm still working on this. This shouldn't be Boolean. It should actually be, it should say rain, heavy rain, or snow. Because those are the weather elements that I support. So those are our map custom properties. Very useful for giving the map any sort of property you need it to have that can be useful in your game. All right, now the objects are really useful, and that's kind of what I would like to focus on, because the objects in tiled are what turn tiled in from just a map editor where you're drawing maps to where you're actually creating some of the content in your maps as well. Objects require a special layer. Okay, so I created an object layer. It's the highest layer. The object layer is actually not drawn in my game. And I will show you some of the code that I wrote to make this happen. But one of the most obvious ones here, you can see these upside down teardrop shaped things. Those are light sources. Okay, light sources are what they sound like. I use them for dynamic lighting. So anywhere there is a light source, I will place one of these objects, and then I can define the color of the light. But I want to show you one of the, well, let's just look at the object editor. This section up here that has the teardrop and the circle or the oval, polygon, square, these are objects. Okay. You can also draw edit polygons and you can select objects. You can even create objects with tiles, which is something that I do. I'll show you that. And there are a few other things like templates, which are pretty cool. I'm not doing a whole lot with them. And then I can insert text. So I just want to insert a simple object here. And over here in our little test map, I'm going to draw an object right there. There's an object. It occupies one tile. You could make it as many tiles as you need it to be. But what is this object? What does it represent? Well, it's entirely up to you. It could be many, many different things. It depends on your game. It could be a collectible. It could be a spawn point, an audio source, a treasure chest, a door. There could be a hidden item here, a switch, an NPC, a bird, really whatever you can think of. That's why objects are so incredibly useful. But how do you tell what type of object it is? How do you define this? Well, one of the ways you could do this is just to come over here to your custom properties. When you create an object, it has properties too, just like the map does. And so this property can be any property that you want. And you can add a property here. You can give it a name. I can call it, hidden item. And I can give it a string, click OK. And hidden item is going to say, healing herb or something like that. Okay, so that's one way that you could do this. But Tiled offers something even better. An object type. Okay, each type of object, and I have several here. I have chest, a cutscene trigger, a door, enemy, generic entity, a map exit, a hidden item, this is for an item that you can see and pick up, a light source, a trigger to move to a layer, a trigger to move to a submap, an on use, a path, playing a sound, signs, spawn points, start tiles, submaps, switches. Let's take a look at the light source. All right, light source has a property of light color and light radius. So when I create a light source, I can determine its color and its radius. How far out from the source does it go? So to create a light source, I use the little teardrop, and it normally snaps to the corners, but if you hold in on the Windows key or Command key, you can place it anywhere you want, any XY value at all. So I'm going to place it here. Now, right now, it's a point object. Wherever it's pointing to, the little bottom of the teardrop, that's where the object is going to be. But right now, it doesn't know that it's a light source. Right now, it's just an object, just a generic object. But since I have a light source, I can now come over here to type and start typing the name of it, declare it a light source, and now I can have access to those properties. All right, so my light color, I can click here and get a color picker, and there's a few different ones. You can use the color wheel or RGB, any of these. I'm just going to come down here to pick a yellow color. So I'll click OK. There's my light color. My light radius, I will make, say 64 pixels. There, I've created a light source. Now, in the game, this will appear as a glowing light source. Now, I had to write the code so that my map loader knew that it was a light source and to create the light source. But just by placing the object now, it's going to show up. I'll say this, my map loader is a very elaborate, quite fancy file. So we'll show you some of that. So there's a light source. Here's a generic object. But I could make this a treasure chest. Okay, so chest. Now it's a treasure chest. But I can go one better than this. I'm going to delete this treasure chest. And instead of creating it with a generic square shape, I'm going to create it with a tile. So I'm going to use a tile insert, go to my chests graphic, and pick one. Let's see, I'll go with this little gold treasure chest here. Now I can place the chest, and I get access to the same custom properties. I can have the number of items in the chest. So I can set it to have 2, and I'm going to have 2 tonics. And I can set whether or not I want the chest to be locked and require a key. All right, now when I reload this map, export the map, save it, reload the game, a treasure chest will appear here. And the treasure chest will have 2 tonics in it. So if I walk up to the treasure chest, I open it, it will tell me that I found 2 tonics. This is all I have to do now to add a treasure chest. So very nice way of being able to add these things. So let's take a look at a few more of the objects that I have. This is a sign that I call the Ale House. This is the name of the tavern here. And I gave it the name right here of the object type. Remember, I had that from up here, the object types editor. My signs, all my signs have, the only property they have is a message. And so if you walk up to this sign and press the button, it will have the Ale House. That's what it'll say. And I can change what it says just by typing and changing this property. Okay. I almost said any questions because I'm so used to teaching. I usually take little pauses and ask. All right, let's take a look at another useful object. This one here, and I'm going to go back to my types editor, called Submap. Okay, so the submap allows me to define a section of my larger map as a submap. Okay, that is a very, very useful thing to be able to do. And I have my submaps hidden. If you know, okay, let's go back to my layers. You can hide and show any of the layers you want. So I can turn off my object layer. I can turn off my above layer, my objects upper, my objects decoration, my objects, my ground decoration, and my ground. The only thing I have left that I can see is the object that I had selected. Everything's gone now. And I can just bring any of these back. So if you want to focus on one of these layers, you can. Okay, so there's each one of these. I don't have to turn on entities, collision. I don't need collision, but you can see the collision object or the collision tiles. I'm going to turn the object layer back on. But even though the object layer is on, I still can't see all of them. And that's because if I go into the objects list, you can disable some of these so that you can't see them. And you'll see why. I have all of my submaps hidden, but I'm going to turn them on so that you can see. So here are all of my submaps. And I'm showing these because I want to show you what I can do with the submap object. Notice it's just a square. I have the same sorts of properties that I have for the main map. I have a light color. If it's not set at all, it assumes that the lighting is normal. Or no, I take that back. If the light color is not set, it assumes it has the same color as the outside. So it will appear dark here. I can change the music. So if I walk into this submap, it changes the music to the fireplace music. The name of this submap is the Ale House. So if you're out in the main part of town and you open your menu, it'll show Parlette, the name of the village. If you walk into the Ale House and bring up the same menu, it'll say that you're in the Ale House. I give the submap a name that I can use to refer to in the code. It is Parlette Tavern. And inside of each submap, I have these two objects called move to submap. So it's right above, let me zoom in here, right here at the stairs and down here at the door. Just these generic objects, but they are of a type called move to submap. And that brings up destination tile X, destination tile Y, and the submap name. Basically what this means is if your character walks into this tile, it's going to move them to another map. In this case, you're going to walk out the door, the front door. It's going to move you back to the main village submap, and it's going to put your character on tile 826. For this one, it's going to take you to the tavern basement map at tile position 4552. Very useful indeed. Now I'm going to disable those submaps because it makes it harder to select. Like if you have the submap object on, you can't select things that are underneath it. That's the main reason that I don't have them displayed, because it makes it hard to select items. I think I got them now. Okay, let's take a look at NPCs. So I'm going to put an NPC here. Let's go to my NPC list, and let's get this little farmer guy here. Now I have something very interesting here. The tiles themselves have properties, and that's something very useful in Tiled. I'm going to click on this little icon down here, little wrench icon, to edit this tile set. Now the tile set is just a list of NPCs. Each one of these, I was able to assign a property. Well, actually, a lot of custom properties. So each NPC has an action. What happens if you press the action button next to them? Well, mine is the say action. It's going to make them talk. It's going to choose an animation, the standing animation. So I can choose other animations as well. Like, well, it depends on what animations the NPC has available to them, but some of them have like laughing animations and such. The character definition is, I have a character object, and I can determine which character this particular graphic should represent. I have a direction that they can face. I can change this from down to left to right to up. I can give them an ID, which I need to do. And I can even use a name here, so I can call this guy Bob, right? And I can give them a state. What state are they in? Well, they're just in NPC stand. I could also make them walking according to a path. Okay, so I'm going to leave my editor here, my tile set editor. And oh, yeah, there's another example map. Go back to the village. And I'm going to place this NPC. It's in my object layer. He's one of my NPCs. And now he'll appear in the map. If I changed the NPC to be facing a different direction, it would show that. In fact, all I have to do is select that particular version, and it will be facing the right direction. And it'll appear that way in the map in the game. Okay. While I'm thinking of it, let's take a look at this. Here's an example map for a platformer that I was playing around with. This is one of the examples I use in classes. In my layers, I have some of the same types of layers. I have my background. I have background animations, which is just that little river there, the animated river in the background. And then I have decorations, which are parts of the foreground that cover the background, but that you don't collide with. Then I have my actual platforms. Platforms are just blocks that you can't interact with at all. You just walk on them and they get in your way and you can't do anything with them. They're solid. However, the blocks that you can interact with have their own special layer. These are the ones that you can jump up and break. Then I have a collectibles layer. Okay. Collectibles are coins and hearts, and an enemies layer. And the game map loader will actually put collectibles and enemies where they appear. And of course, I've got my collision layer as well, and my spawn point. Okay, just a little example of how it doesn't have to be an over top-down style RPG map. Another map here that I have is the battle map. And so this shows another feature of Tiled. Your map layers can be put in folders. So this one has the actual map data, the tiles and the objects and all that stuff that I just showed you are in this folder. But this, being a battle map, has a special battle data. Okay, and if I turn this off, you can see what that does. The battle data represents two things. The green tiles are where my the protagonists, your army, this is where they will appear. And it fills them in at a, I don't have to name which character goes where. It will just fill them in with my characters as they appear. Now I can, if I want, select a property. I can put a property on this so that if I want a particular character to appear in a particular place, I can. But the way I have it set up now, my army will have 5 characters by this point, and it will just fill these in at random. It's kind of how Shining Force works. It depends on which characters you have. The gray squares, however, these are enemies. And these do have some interesting properties, such as the character definition. Okay, so this particular enemy is going to be an orc warrior. And here is a Hura mage, an orc fighter, and I think over here we have a Hura captain. I don't know. Yes, okay, I have this particular character has an item drop. And right now I'm using a number. I need to fix this because I don't have to use numbers anymore. I actually use named items. I can set this up so my keyboard will work. Oh, I think my wireless keyboard battery may have died. Oh well, oh there we go. I think that's exactly what's going on. Yeah, my batteries are gone in my keyboard. Fine time for that, huh? I could change that number to the word antidote. And this orc fighter, when I defeat him, will drop an antidote that the character can pick up. So even the battle data is particularly useful. So you can see if I look at my objects list, I've got battle data, I've got these enemies, and I have 5 start tiles for my particular protagonists. Okay, so I've shown you what Tiled can do, but now let's talk about how to actually get it into your game. The first thing, of course, is exporting the data. You can save as several different formats. Oh, wait, I'm going to go to export as. All right, so export as. Tiled has its own format called TMX, but it's just XML. You can also export to CSV, a defold tile map, so if you're using the defold engine, a game maker room file, a JSON file, a JavaScript file, or Lua. I use Lua because the engine that I use, the framework that I'm using, Love2D, uses Lua. So this is perfect for me. All I have to do is import the file, and it's a Lua object. However, there are map loaders for other game engines. I know that Unreal has one. I am almost positive that Unity has one. And there's one I'm missing. Godot, I think, can use it, but it's pretty early in the making right now. But if you're using an engine that doesn't have it, you can still write your own map loader because these are well-known file formats. XML, CSV, JSON, Lua. you can write your own map loader. So the one of the contributors to a lot of Lua libraries or Love2D libraries has created something called simple tiled implementation. And it's just a real simple library that you can use to pull in a tiled map in the Lua format. And the code looks something like this. You require the file. You create a map object. Map equals STI, and then a path to the Lua file. And of course, this actually has a few plugins, like the Box2D collision plugin. Sometimes I use a collision plugin called Bump, which is a good one. And you can create your collision world, your physics world. You can initialize your Box2D. So this map here will have Box2D, 2D physics, and collisions. They are adding a custom layer for sprites. And you define your update and draw functions for that layer. Make sure you update your map object and then draw your map object. Very easy to work with. These are the basics. My map loader is a lot more complex, however. So time to switch over to my code editor, Atom, and some Lua. Don't worry if you're not familiar with the Lua language. I think the code will still be obvious enough. This is my constructor function. And here I'm doing some of the same things that we just saw. I am loading a map, creating a map object with the STI library. I'm giving it a path to a file name, and I always load the bump layer, the bump collision detection plugin. My maps are actually composed of multiple logical layers on top of those other layers. I won't get into that, but my maps have a lot of properties. They have an ID, they have a name, like, you know, the names that I gave them. The file name, the actual tile map data, width and height, a table of triggers, a table of submaps, the music that's going to be played, a light world, a table of NPCs, a table of paths that NPCs can follow, whether or not it has weather, what the weather type is, and whether or not this map is in battle. Because if it's in battle, we're going to load that battle data. Okay. This shows how I can access the properties of the main properties of the map. So let's go back to our map here. Map properties. All right, so the name that I gave this map is Parlet. The property is called name. So keep that in mind. Let's go back to my code. I will assign the name of this map object to whatever map.properties.name is. The STI library brings in all those properties so that I can get immediate access to them. So here it is right in code. I'm grabbing the name of that map. I'm doing the same thing here for my main submap, my main area. It has a name. It has an origin, tile X and Y, a width and height, and a light color and music. Now I'm going to scroll down to where I process all of the objects. This loop loops through every object in the map. And this is the section of my map loader that actually adds these objects to the world. So if the map is just a generic item, then I'm going to use, now notice what I'm doing here, object.type. Let's go back to tiled and pick an object. What's my object type for this? It's a light source. My object type for this guy is an NPC. My object type here is a sign. So in my code, I'm looking at that object.type. So for each object, I'm going to do something with it. So this is a generic item. It's going to create an entity, which is a visual entity on the map. It's going to add it to the map. Okay, it's going to get the XY coordinate, and it's going to add that entity to the map in the right tile. If the object is a hidden item, I have a function to insert a hidden item. I have a function to insert an NPC. Inserting a light source is creating a new light source with the radius and then setting its color and its position. Here's a treasure chest. I have insert chest. Here's a sign. A sign is just creating a read sign action and assigning it to a trigger at that particular spot. Here's inserting a door. Here's inserting a submap. All of these, this big giant if, else if, inserts all of these objects. And then down here, I have all of those functions defined, like insert hidden item. It's going to go look up its item ID by using object.properties.itemID. Okay, if it has a name, it's going to go look it up by name. It's going to create a hidden item action and assign it a trigger. And then it's going to add the trigger to the map. Triggers are basically any part of the map that you can interact with. So if I have a hidden item, I interact with that particular tile by pressing the action button next to it, and then I can find the item. Some triggers happen when you walk into the tile or walk out of it. Here's my insert NPC function. This is actually a pretty big function. There's a lot going on here because I have to add things like the character's state, their animation frames, their paths. There's a lot more to adding an NPC. It's still going. Here's my insert door, because insert door is going to add a trigger to move to a submap. Insert chest is going to add a trigger to open a chest. Here's my open chest action. So you do end up having to do a lot in code, but once you have these things set up, drawing the map becomes extremely easy. Just like I showed you before, all I have to do is insert the character and they'll appear after I export it and save it. Okay. There's more. Let's see, I do have a couple of minutes and I might be able to pull this one off. Let's try to very quickly add another house to this map using a really interesting feature. Input objects, I need to see that. So I need that tile, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. Okay. So I'm going to go over here to my house tiles, or maybe it's house 2. It's been a while since I've done this, so I can't quite remember. All right, it's the gray roof tile. This one. This is a nifty little trick that I hope works. I think I've got it. Objects 1, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then auto map. Okay, it didn't work. I may not, I've just started experimenting with this one, so I may not have it set up properly. Auto map rules are very interesting ways of drawing complex objects all at once. And if I disable these, the way this should work is if I draw just this little row of tiles, just this, like these green tiles here, it will automatically draw all the rest of this stuff in the correct layers, including collision and objects. So if I draw this house, it'll automatically create everything that I have. But like I said, I don't know that I have the auto mapping set up on this particular map. So, and I'm also running out of time. Try it one more time. Oh, there it is. Okay. All I had to do was draw those 8 tiles. I can do it again. Press the A button, and it automatically draws everything else, including the light source. Everything's going to be in the right layer. All the collision is going to be set up. Now, it does mean that for things like this, you have to set up the rules, and it means, you know, you do have to make some pre-made houses, and you know, maybe you want a little bit more variety. But if you want that variety, you can just keep setting up more. The hard thing for me, I think, is coming up with the unique drawing patterns. So you have to using the drawing patterns and then remembering what they are. So I can create this whole tavern by taking this one particular tile, I think it's this one, and going 6 tiles across, 4 up, and then 6 across again. Let's try it. 6 tiles across, 4 tiles up, 6 tiles across again. Press A, and there it is. There's my whole tavern drawn in that one shot. It even includes the door to get inside the tavern. It sets up all the objects that you need. Very powerful, but also a little tricky to set up. Auto mapping is very useful, but definitely tricky. So that's all the time that I have today. I hope I was able to show some of the really cool things that Tiled can do. I'm going to continue to add YouTube videos showing you a little bit more, you know, specifically how to set these things up, more detailed instructions. But Tiled makes my life much easier as a game developer. I spend most of my time drawing maps, bringing them into the code, and writing the code. These are my two tools for game development. I use my programming editor and my map editor. This is where I make everything happen. All right, so once again, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you have any questions about Tiled, and I haven't made a YouTube video on it, and you need a little help with something, please feel free to contact me. My Twitter is @DoolinDigital, and there we go. There's @DoolinDigital, and I can you can access the same information on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, Doolin Digital on Facebook. You can look up Doolin Digital on YouTube. And you can also even send me an email if you like at jdoolin@wvncc.edu. It's my northern account. If you wanted to establish some communication that way, I'd be happy to. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and have a great time with game development. Thank you very much, and see everyone later.